As Congressman Bill Huizenga, who represents the newly redrawn 4th District, including Berrien County. Thanks for staying up late with us to share your thoughts on the State of the Union.
Yeah, happy to be with you and glad we could do this.
Absolutely. First, let's talk about the economy. President Biden touted the nation's economic health in his State of the Union address tonight. Although the jobs report came out a few days ago, showing that the labor market is strong, inflation is still a major issue. It's impacting Americans day to day, of course. So what are your thoughts on the efforts to ease inflation so far? What else do you think can be done to provide relief, hopefully sooner rather than later?
Yeah, that jobs report is part of the picture, but not the whole picture. And what we do know is that the labor participation rates are very, very low, which has caused the number for unemployment to go down. Yet we see the raw number of people that still aren't back to work is actually very high. I thought the president's address tonight was overly rosy and optimistic about where the economy is. And frankly, most people don't feel it in their bones, and they certainly don't feel it in their pocketbooks or their checkbooks as they're trying to put fuel in their minivan, as they're trying to put food on their table and keep a roof over their house. They know that inflation has been a monster that has come and barged its way in. And at the end of the day, the average family here over the last 2 years is having to spend $10,000 more for those basics just so that they can keep that food on the table and the lights on and all those things. So there's a real impact on families.
Definitely a major issue impacting our country tonight. And another key part of President Biden's new economic policy agenda is a new billionaires tax, which would set a minimum tax for the wealthiest Americans. Now, he also proposed a sharp increase of the current tax on corporate stock buybacks. Do you think these are actually realistic solutions to spur economic growth? And do you think either proposal has a chance of actually becoming law?
Yeah, I think this is more about political rhetoric than actual policy solutions. You know, frankly, you could confiscate every single dime that every billionaire in the United States has, and we aren't even going to put a dent into what our annual deficit spending is. So this is really just more rhetoric than it is actual policy proposals. We've got to get serious about our spending in the short term, the medium term, and certainly the long term. Because this is an anchor that we are putting around our kids and our grandkids and their future as they're trying to have the same opportunities that we all have had. So we've got to be realistic about it. There are some areas where I think the president, if he displays the leadership that he was talking about, immigration reform, helping veterans and mental health issues and some of those kinds of things, police reform, then we've got a real shot of working together. But it is going to take him transitioning from the rhetoric to actual action.
Now, I want to build off that. A new ABC Washington Post poll shows 41% of Americans believe they are, quote, not well off since President Biden took office. Some Democrats have been outspoken about how they don't think the party needs a reset. But do you think either party needs some sort of reset to get everyone on the same page again, especially with Representative Kevin McCarthy taking over as Speaker of the House? Of course, we know that historic voting got heated at times.
It did. That was a long 15-vote series over 6 days, I guess it was. So that was certainly historic and a bit of a challenge. You know, we sometimes like to shine the apple a little bit on the history of how everyone used to get along. Well, that isn't always the case. We certainly have had our challenges, but at the end of the day, can we come together and have enough of us agree in the general direction that we're going to go? And look, President Obama had the exact same opportunity 2 years into his presidency when I came into office in 2010. And he also had that rhetoric about resetting and starting anew. But he came back in a pretty hard partisan fashion. So we'll see what Joe Biden does. You know, certainly the reputation of the old Joe Biden when he was in the Senate and was able to cut deals certainly hasn't come to fruition and shown itself in his first 2 years as president. We'll see what happens here in the next 2 years.
Definitely sounds like he's soft launching his campaign for re-election. Now, I want to switch gears with you here on a local level. Of course, this is ABC 57's first time chatting with you since you were re-elected to represent Michigan's newly drawn 4th congressional district. So I just want to take this time here. You replaced Republican U.S. Congressman Fred Upton, who, of course, has served for decades. He made a pretty big mark here in Michigan over the years. So as you get to know your new constituents, what do you want them to know about you to help them get to know you?
Yeah, very fair question. You know, I am a small business owner. First and foremost, I'm a husband and a dad to 5 kids. But I've got a focus that has allowed me, as a former staffer for my predecessor, Peter Hoekstra, and a former state legislator, to have some real policy chops and an understanding of how government works and what those policy effects are. But as I said, being a 3rd-generation small business owner, my family's in construction and real estate. I own a sand and gravel operation. That's the main business. I understand what tax policy means. I understand what is happening when we're dealing with the EPA or other regulations that might be going on. And look, at the end of the day, our small businesses and our entrepreneurial spirit is what separates the United States from so many other countries around the world. We've got to preserve that and nurture it and allow that to blossom and grow, because those small companies that are in a garage today end up becoming sometimes multi-billion-dollar companies that can have an impact on the world. So I'm fighting for that. I'm certainly fighting as a fiscal conservative. I am fighting for some common sense reactions to what's happening with our debt and our deficit and our spending. I've helped form a bipartisan group that's looking solely at spending and the deficits that we have going on. That's been a big focus of mine. But also on the policy side and on a more local level, I'm the chair of the Great Lakes Task Force, for example. I've done a lot of work on the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and the health of the Great Lakes ecosystem. As I always say, both the economy and the ecology of the Great Lakes can coexist, and we can be successful in protecting both.
Sounds like a lot of work ahead of you. Thanks again for taking the time to join us live here on Night Team tonight, Congressman Huizenga. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yes.